Hello, my name is Sarah Chapman. I'm one of the co-curators of the Beryl Cook exhibition held at the Peninsula Arts Gallery, University of Plymouth. The exhibition opens on Saturday the 8th of November and runs to Saturday the 20th of December. We're going to have a look at some of her very well-known images and walk around the exhibition, and I'll talk about some of her works. Beryl was a self-taught artist. She didn't train at art college. She picked up a paint palette in the early 1960s as one of her son's paint boxes, and her very first painting, which we're going to look at now, is Hangover. If we look at this image, we can see Beryl's very familiar sense of humour at work, even in this very first painting. So the name Hangover doesn't refer to the alcoholic type of hangover. We're talking about the female breast hanging over. So a quite delightful, quirky image. If you look at her eyes, those sideways glance, when we look at some of her later work, the sideways glance carries on right through her painting. So perhaps, although she did this entirely for enjoyment, we do see her some trademarks that she carries on into her later work. If we drop down and look at the painting below Hangover, again this is a very early painting in the 60s. It's called Ladies in Amsterdam. Again, if we look at some aspects of it, we can see the sort of the funny ladies, winking eyes, the kind of subject matter. Sort of larger ladies with obviously the sexual connotations. However, the style is not that well-rounded painting style that we are so familiar with. Also, some of her early work, I think, is slightly darker. So if you look at the lady here on the end, sort of very black eyes, there is something almost, slightly sinister. Perhaps, which I think, again in her later work, we lose that kind of style, and it becomes much more about fun-loving, sort of the jolly sort of scenes that again we're very familiar with Beryl Cook's work. So Beryl started painting in the 1960s, but very quickly, as her work develops, her work moves into the more familiar style. If we look at this painting, which was painted in the late 1970s, it's called My Fur Coat, and perhaps it's one of the very classic paintings of Beryl. I particularly like it as it shows that very stereotypical sort of the British class system. The lady with the fur coat, and I do believe it's wolf fur. I mean, that in itself is quite interesting, as Beryl was very un-PC, and so a lot of her paintings will show life as it is: smoking, drinking, the excesses of our lives. And in this painting, this lady has a fabulous fur coat, as un-PC as you can get. Obviously, we assume she's a lady of the night with her shiny red high heel shoes. We also assume, and I say assume because it's all innuendo really, that she's exposing herself to that very British gentleman with the bowler hat and umbrella and his broadsheet paper under the arms. If we look at this painting, The Dolphin Hotel, it's actually called Hen Party. The Dolphin Hotel being a very well-known pub down on the Barbican, which he used to frequent quite often, drinking in the Dolphin Hotel. I should say that Beryl was a very quiet character, and not a lot of people are aware of this. They assume, they see these big, larger-than-life characters in her paintings, when actually she was quite quiet and a reticent character, but she was an observer of everyday life. And so when we look at these paintings, they are so familiar to us. We've seen scenes like this out on the town, in clubbing, the nightlife, people having a good time, good fun. So this one here is a hen party. These girls are having a good time. Another aspect of Beryl's work was her capacity to record fashions and trends of the time. So when you look at her paintings, you can almost date them for the dress styles and the shoes. So I would have a hazard. I'd guess this was the 80s with those cropped trousers and the little short shorts. Certainly Beryl loved shoes. And we do have a pair of shoes that she had in her studio here in the exhibition. So very interesting. If we also move on to another Plymouth icon, and that's Elvira's Cafe, just off Durnford Street near the Kreml Ferry. Again, Beryl's family used to run Elvira's Cafe in the 80s. A fantastic location if you want your full English breakfast and your good strong cup of tea. Here in the image, again, people are enjoying themselves. We can see the full English breakfast in the window. People going in, coming out, always having a good time. She was always interested in recording the positive side of life. And we also have two delightful objects, a cinema chair and a homemade crafted chair within the exhibition. If we look first at the cinema, the two cinema seats, which is a fantastic object, I think. The story is that when the Plymouth Arts Centre was refurbished and the cinema was refurbished, when they took the seats out, Beryl managed to get hold of these two chairs, and in a true Beryl style, she's made an interpretation of this wonderful lady. So you've got the two eyes on the back of the seats, you've got a full lovely red lipstick teeth, and I just think it's an example of her rich imagination. Perhaps we can think of all those, what the seats have seen whilst they've been in the cinema, all those lovely Hollywood ladies, starlets on the big screen, or maybe some of the activities on the back seat row of the cinema. So I just think it's just a wonderful interpretation and an insight into how Beryl, that humour, was always there in her work. Okay, so this other chair that we also have in the exhibition is a great find and also has never been exhibited before. She knitted, she crafted embroidery, and clearly on this one we've got the pinball machine, so just a wonderful object in itself. Another aspect of Beryl's work is that she illustrated for a number of books. The work produced for these books are very exclusive. Unless you've seen these books, you wouldn't have seen the work anywhere else. And the books in themselves, what we're looking at the moment is the Folio Society. And this particular book is The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. They are beautiful objects in themselves, if you look at the binding, and are now quite collectible, and you would never have seen them anywhere else. And Beryl only illustrated for books and authors that she was interested in and inspired by. So she never felt she never felt as if she was pressured to make these illustrations.